Everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the Morningstar Off-Grid Systems Monitoring and Control webinar on their cutting-edge GenStar series. Just a few quick items before we get going today. During the webinar, all attendees will be muted for best audio quality. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to type in your questions. Those questions will be monitored and answered towards the end of the presentation. This presentation will be recorded and shared with all of you within 1 week of today's session. And it is my pleasure to welcome John White, today's presenter from Morningstar. Charge Solar has been a Morningstar partner and distributor of their products since early 2008 and has an even longer relationship history through preceding companies. Morningstar continues to lead the way in the off-grid remote marketplaces, and we are happy to have them present with us at our in-person training event on small off-grid remote applications in Edmonton on May 30th. So I'm just going to pop that link to the Eventbrite page into the chat. So if you want to learn more about it, all the info's in there. And without any further ado, I will pass it over to John to get us started. Thanks so much, John.
Welcome to everyone joining today, and lots of thanks to you, Tatum, for pulling this together. These training sessions, really offer some very much needed technical support, on the product, application tools, to ensure that installations are done efficiently and have high value. So thank you again for you and your team. It's been a long relationship and probably one of the longer ones we've had, but just goes to the fact that we've got a great working relationship, and you guys are wonderful partners. So thank you for that. So I'm John White with Morningstar. I'm a senior account manager. I've been with Morningstar for 6 years. However, I've known and really trusted the Morningstar product for probably about 20 years, tracing my first connection with Morningstar, probably going back to supporting dealer installations throughout North America and Canada. So it's been a nice ride. For those of you who've been in the industry for many years, you can we can kind of share stories at some point, but yeah, it's been fantastic, and to be able to partner with Charge has been even more so. So we're going to have just kind of a friendly conversation today about one of our main products, but I thought it's really important to give just take a few seconds to give an overview on Morningstar, give you a little bit broader perspective of where we are before we focus in on the GenStar product itself. So Morningstar, many of you are longtime customers, so we very much appreciate that. Since 1993, we've installed actually sold more than 4 million units of different configurations, from small 6-volt, 12-volt, 6-amp, all the way up to 100-amp charge controllers and inverters. So got a long history in lots of different locations all over the world. Just a little quick background on myself. I've had the great opportunity to travel all over the world. My focus over the years has been in Asia. I've been into a lot of very remote sites throughout the outback of Australia or Indonesia or Thailand or the Philippines, Malaysia. I say that just to bring up the point that no matter where you are in the world, the applications and the needs of developing and installing really reliable off-grid systems really isn't much different no matter where you are in the world. It's really quite remarkable. The types of products you might use from a battery and or a solar panel brand might change, but overall the expectations and what's needed to support these off-grid applications really doesn't change much. So neat thing about it is the wide range of products we have supports many applications across different temperature environments, from the cold in the poles to the deserts near the equator. So it's really quite amazing when you think about all those sites installed in all those different environments. And of course, all that points back to having a very reliable product line, which we do. So we wouldn't be here without our fantastic engineering and tech support teams and partners like Charge Solar. So that's a little background. I also wanted to start real quickly with this is pulling off our actual web page. And I just wanted to highlight a few important resources and areas because for all those years, I think I can count probably over 500 technical documents that include not only just operating manuals and quick start guides, but technical how-tos and background information, which is a huge repository of information that's so valuable to you as an installer and integrator. So I thought I'd just pick out a few of these items here on this list. On the top left, you see battery information. We've developed, I think we're the first ones years ago to come to the market with a energy storage partner program, which really focused on partnering with battery manufacturers, in particular with their lithium battery evolution. So we have that energy storage partner program. I'll show a slide here at the end of the presentation. We have best practices and a lot of information on custom settings for different batteries. As you can imagine, we've seen just about every type of battery, and all of our product is connected to a battery in one way or another. So we don't think we're the go-to expert on batteries, but we certainly know a lot about it, and we've got some great technical application engineers that can help sort things out if you have any questions. The other section here is the tech info, which we talked about, which includes our technical documents, our white papers, and even case studies, which give you really good information about the products and how they're used. We have software tools. We have a really fantastic string calculator that allows you to plug in any one of our products along with any of the solar modules you might be using. It's a subscription that we maintain, and I think it has 50,000 modules from many years. So you can find just about anything in there. It also gives you a manual option if you have a custom module of some sort. But that string calculator is so useful in determining the right string sizing, series parallel combination for the application. We have MS Load, MS View. We have some mobile Bluetooth apps, which we'll talk about a little bit. And of course, we have this webinar along with many other ones and how-to videos that really round out the technical support and what we try to bring to you from a service standpoint. Marketing assets. This is another really important item here. It's kind of in the weeds a little bit, but this product model reference guide is really a shortcut to all of our different products. It's a spreadsheet document that gives you the weights and dimensions, and as a summary, it gives you the hyperlinks for each product all in one spot. So although you can find it by running through the pull down menus here, it's kind of a nice go-to document to keep handy. The GenStar that we're going to be talking about today, this is also a pull down menu. I wanted to just highlight some of the key areas that are also fantastic resources. On the right-hand side, you'll see data sheets, operation manual links, quick start guides, which give you kind of a IKEA direction, so to speak, summary of what you're looking at from an integration standpoint. And so it's a fantastic guide. We have quick start guides for all of our products now. You're going to see links here for LiveView 2.0 we're going to talk about. You'll have Android and iOS apps that are available for download. You'll have MIB files for our SNMP application protocols along with Modbus documentation, a link to tech support files. Any of these resource links you see in any individual product, the tech support link, file link will be specific for that product, so it helps narrow things down. Again, string sizing, link here, and the firmware. So it's a great resource, and oftentimes I start with that because if you have a big picture perspective on where to get information, then life is easy. So just a high-level overview of what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about kind of the performance and what the GenStar is all about. We're going to talk about the fantastic Ready blocks and what they do. We're going to cover a little bit on setup and commissioning. We're going to get into a little bit of the LiveView 2.0, the web interface for monitoring and controlling the unit. Give you some examples of some of the apps, and again, point back to the importance of string sizing and how that's relevant to developing a good design. So high-level advantages of the GenStar, it really is much more than a MPPT charge controller. It's a DC system controller, and hopefully by the end of the presentation, the takeaway is, yep, it's much more than a ProStar, a TriStar, or all the different accessories that you can put together for those configurations. It really is an all-in-one DC system controller that provides fantastic control, monitoring, and it just streamlines the installation. For those of you who've had a lot of experience on the installation side, you'll know what I mean when you see a cabinet that looks like a kind of a rat's nest of wiring and lots of different components. And I've seen many of those. I've sat through lots of training for different manufacturers over the years. And the big takeaway that I have is that although individual components might have decent training or brands might have decent training, when you're mixing and matching different components within a system, you start to lose the real advantages of the functionality of what those individual components can do. So we're bringing this all together in a DC system controller. And again, at the end of the presentation, hopefully you find that I've been able to communicate the value of this system in a much more easy and functional perspective. Basic core features of the GenStar. It comes in 3 different flavors, I say, of a 60, 80, and 100 amp version. It has a 200 volt input, and it is operational for 12, 24, and 48 volt systems out of the box. The oversized PV array input capability. That really is something that across many of our products is so important with the price of solar panels down where they are, and the ability to oversize a PV array on any one of these units. It really becomes very, very cost effective to do that. When you're in environments where you have low solar resources, having a larger array that can still maximize the output charging of that unit really is a fantastic way to think about it. The 100 amp unit rating at 150% oversizing will take you up to nearly 8,000 watts on a single charge controller. So that, combined with the fact that you can put multiple systems together, can really build out into supporting 10, 20, 30, 40 kilowatts very easily. The efficiency is so important when we're talking about off-grid components. It's really has a best-in-class efficiency. It's convection cooled. There's no internal operating fan. So the heat sink is purposely built large to allow for that high efficiency. On a 100 amp unit with a 48 volt battery, the efficiencies are running right along on kind of a flat efficiency curve in the 99% range. So very efficient, and that keeps the unit cool, which relates back to the operating temperature range of the system. which is minus 30 to plus 45 degrees C at full load. So, and then it will derate after that up to 60 degrees C. So has a fantastic operating range from a temperature standpoint, and it's really driven by the fact that it's so efficient, and the convection cool combination. It supports all types of battery chemistries, as you'll see as we run down through the slides. Obviously, for many years, lead acid and sealed batteries, and now lithium coming onto the stage. You just have to have a system that is compatible with all those types of chemistries. And this one is speaks lithium right out of the box and has some unique setups and defaults specifically for different types of lithium configurations. If you're familiar with the dip switches that we used and have incorporated into some of our other products, you'll know that there are some different dip switches for different types of batteries. And this one takes it to a different level, including lithium. And of course, it can be done and controlled both from the front panel and through its LiveView app. The connectivity options include a built-in Ethernet port, 45 MS CAN, USB, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi. In the future, we have a Bluetooth Wi-Fi chipset that's installed in every unit. The Bluetooth is already enabled and active right now on every unit that's being shipped, and the Wi-Fi will be turned on shortly. Another real key feature to this, for those of you that have used, say, TriStar and PPT units with TriStar PWMs for load control, this unit has a 30 amp load control built into it, standard, all three models. So that's another fantastic advantage of having a feature built into it to eliminate additional accessories. This is kind of a big picture perspective of what we see as the advantages of having a DC system controller. Starting in the top left-hand corner, you clearly see the wireless communications. Again, we have Android and iOS apps for the GenStar. Up at the top, through our Ethernet, standard Ethernet port, it allows you to configure different protocols, integrate with network management platforms. You can access the unit through LiveView, through its own web browser. This unit has its own web-enabled server built into the unit, so you can access it directly. And of course, through MSView. So a tremendous amount of outward communication capabilities, including Modbus, which is very prevalent in the commercial industrial space. Off to the right there, you see dry contact signaling and scheduling and configuration logic, and that's built in using our unique Ready Block configuration features, which we'll talk about a little bit. And that also includes current measurement and monitoring right from the GenStar directly. Of course, lower right-hand corner, you'll see lithium battery example. You see all different types of chemistries along with generators. They could be diesel generators, gas generators, they could even be fuel cells. So that's part of our external source control feature capabilities we have with this. And it's really all driven by what's shown below, and that's the three different colored Ready Blocks. One other note here on the lower left-hand corner is a picture of one of our SureSign inverters. The connection and interoperability and measurement to be able to capture different products within the Morningstar line is really important. And our SureSign inverter line from 150 to 2,500 watts, covering 12, 24, 48 volts is a fantastic add-on for many off-grid applications. So the top right is what I just talked about. The lower portion of this slide really is what the component count would be if you didn't have a GenStar feature configuration possibility. You would have external battery monitors. You might have external BMS for lithium configurations. You might have a networking hub. You might have one of our SNMP EMC1 Ethernet interface boxes. And you might have some relay drivers and load control devices. to be able to enable and control different types of devices. So we really see the GenStar as being one unit replacing numerous components that are just really going to simplify the interoperability and configuration and installation of your system. Some of these slides here I'll go through fairly quickly, but I just want to reiterate some of the points on that configuration slide. The data options that we have here from Modbus or SNMP. Again, we talked about the internal web server that's built into every unit. The unit also has an SD card for extensive data logging and configuration. The unit has a coin cell, which allows it to understand time. And if you can understand time from a scheduling standpoint, you have a fantastic resource to be able to control items relative to timestamps and reporting. The SD card itself is really a fantastic tool. It's more than just data logging. It's a configuration tool. If you have multiple GenStars and or multiple sites that you're installing, and let's say you have 10 of them, you can configure one GenStar, save all that data that you've set up, and then populate multiple GenStars with that same data card. So it really streamlines the integration and configuration of multiple sites. The MS-CAN we talked about briefly is a data link between Morningstar units. So this is just showing an example of multiple SureSign inverters connecting to and being monitored by the GenStar. The load control, again, a 30 amp load control built into each GenStar. That's the integrated capability of it. In addition to that, one of the ready blocks that we have is a ready relay that also can be configured for additional units. And again, the MS-CAN data link below shows how that may tie in even to a SureSign or other device. This is a summary. I'll go through this just pretty quick. It's a reference document for those of you that are receiving the presentation, but the integration through open protocols is so important. We log the information on the GenStar, but we do not take it up to the cloud. It's not in our space. It's not on our server. Unlike other competitive products, you may have a challenge with that from a security and privacy perspective. So all the information is stored on GenStar itself. You can view it and control it through our Live View app, but the information is yours and only yours. This is just a bottom view. This is a snapshot out of one of our operating manuals here, just showing the different configurations where you have Ethernet access and you have a CAN bus port also. That will allow in the future for you to sync up multiple units together from a charging perspective. So we have the MS-CAN port there, Ethernet. We certainly have remote temp and voltage sense. We have USB-C port and a Modbus port. The USB-C is really fantastic because if you think about the GenStar platform, we're really trying to describe a future-proof type device that can be used for many years in the future. And as new features and options, especially with the Ready Rail, become available and necessary, it's going to be ready for accepting those upgrades. So again, RS-232/45 comes standard with the unit, as well as the coin cell, which is a very simple, readily available CR2032 Panasonic coin cell. We talked about Bluetooth for mobile connectivity. Nice thing about that radio for Bluetooth, just like your cell phone, can be toggled right from the front soft key on the unit from a security standpoint. Very important. We talked a little bit about the SD card and how it's configurable and the importance of that. It syncs in internal memory back once you remove the card. So you could be in the field from a servicing standpoint, take the SD card out, take it with you, download the information if that was your only way to get the information out of the unit. When you bring it back in, it catches everything back up and doesn't lose the information. So Again, we put a lot of thought in that SD card, not only just from a storage standpoint, but from a configuration and logging perspective. So the Ready Rail is really the Ready Rail system is really the magic, I would say, of the GenStar. It pulls in all the different feature sets that you might need, from BMS communications to shunts to relays, and allows you to configure it in lots of different combinations and permutations. So each one of these ready blocks, we can call them, are configurable. They have an intelligence built into them. So as you plug and play them on the DIN rail, they'll recognize each other. They'll power each other up from the one next to it or from the GenStar itself and get off and running. So they're really quite easy from a configuration standpoint. And we'll just step through for a few minutes here the advantages and some of the system capabilities. Starting with the Ready BMS. So we talked about lithium batteries. A lot of talk about having those batteries having their own BMS brain, and that's different from what we're talking about here. This Ready BMS allows the GenStar for configured battery manufacturers to really talk to that battery and let that battery tell the GenStar what to do. It'll tell us from a charging standpoint, hey, I can accept more, I can accept less. It may speak to us from a standpoint of state of charge. Maybe that battery manufacturer wants a low voltage disconnect at a 20% state of charge. And maybe for long life, they would prefer it to be charged to 80 or 90%. So there's lots of different connections and benefits from having a Ready BMS block incorporated into your system. It just allows for advanced settings and a real close handshake and a closed loop configuration with that lithium battery manufacturer. The Ready Shunt is really a fantastic unit. It has two inputs, so it's got an A and B channel, so to speak. It'll accept 50, 150, 100, and 500 amps shunts, which are sold separately and or in a shunt kit. It's got both 50 millivolt and 100 millivolt support for scaling. And the modes of operation of that are load, source, net, and monitoring. So from a current draw, you can understand how the importance of this might be related to summing all the different loads, both internal and external to the system. Charging source, it'll sum with PV charging and other external sources. So if you've got generators or you've got fuel cells, things like that, we can connect those in. It's got bidirectional net monitoring mode, and it has a summary of monitoring. So it's really a fantastic unit. And all of these shunts, whether it be the Ready Shunt, the BMS shunt, or they can all be mixed and matched. So if you don't need a BMS block, you could put multiple shunt blocks in or multiple relay blocks in. This is an example of a pull down display from the LiveView monitoring and control app. This is just showing you've named channel 2 as a battery meter, and you've set it up relative to its rating and full scale amp rating, and whether it was a net branch circuit or other. So again, some really great capabilities here. This is just talking about the accuracy. Again, when you're doing state of charge, this would self-calibrate once you've gone through an absorption stage with that battery bank. And then from there on, it would understand state of charge, which is a fantastic feature. Again, it supports all types of battery chemistry and configurations. This is just talking a little bit more about battery state of charge and the ability for us to identify and how big that battery bank is and the state of charge efficiencies. There's many defaults that you can set for lead acid and different types of lithium batteries. Again, if you were using BMS ready block. It may override if you're in a closed loop configuration. That battery itself may tell us exactly what to do from a state of charge standpoint, which is another very powerful capability there. New uses, it might be a little bit new to you, include AC charging, current measurement, those type of things, end amps, global net current max configurations and current limits. And again, managing all the state of charges for all those different types of configurations. The ready relay is the third item in that trifecta. The hardware itself also has, again, two terminals, two relays with two terminals per block, single pole, double throw, normally open, normally closed positions. That's all settable. And they also incorporate not only the brains to communicate between each other and or the other ready blocks, but has replaceable relay cartridges built into it. So again, modes of operation, simple conditions, variables. You can set different ranges and or events. This is again one of the different pull-down menus that make life easy from a configuration standpoint. It's got 52 system values to choose from, common settings, battery settings, PV settings. It includes the shunt data and state of charge when you're trying to control the different devices. It looks at charge and load states, and it has a conditional logic of and or. So you can have it say, I want a certain device to turn on at 7 p.m., but for these other criteria need to be met. So again, there's a lot of functionality there and real neat control. Commissioning, I kind of have stepped through commissioning out of the box with lots of different customers all over the world. And I kind of liken it to pulling out an iPhone out of the box. There's no real manual. There's no real question about what to do. You power up the unit and you get through from the front panel of the unit, you get through the different screens very easily, setting up language. Are you going to have Ethernet rights? What is your operating battery voltage? Setting a UTC time and allowing that to fetch the time so it's on automatically, and identifying if you're using a BMS block. So some very basic information to get you up and running, and then you can get charging. You don't have to go through an in-depth setup with LiveView. But all the information is there and charging will begin. So once you go through that commissioning of what I just covered, you can save and load that. Again, you can save that basic configuration to the SD card and or load it, from another, you can upload rather settings from another SD card that maybe you have previously set. This is a beginning of a few slides on the GenStar LiveView 2.0. This is a very responsive, integrated app that's built into the unit. It's browser-based. Any browser or operating system can connect to it. It, again, is served from the GenStar specifically, and it offers a lot of future configuration options. It gets back to our future-proof way of thinking about moving forward. I would highly recommend that you get on the Morningstar Corp website and take a look at the link for the LiveView web app demonstration. It'll allow you to play around. It'll allow you to get through all the different features and set up different configurations. Fantastic way to kind of introduce yourself to the power of both monitoring what's going on, but also setting up some really neat control scenarios. As you can see at the top, you have commands, you have history, you have settings, setup. One of the features that we've incorporated in here is understanding that end users might share the LiveView login with end customers, but they don't want them to make changes. So we have actually installer access password that once you enable allows you to have full feature capabilities of of settings and controls, but locks it down for third-party or end customers. This is an example of some of the advanced scheduling we have. Again, based on the fact that we've got a real-time clock, we now have a 24/7 capability to schedule the controller based on time events. You can use the conditional logic we talked about, and you can reuse these schedules and save them for different cases. So you can overlay and then look at a weekly calendar from live view, and it'll tell you what the different routines and what the different settings have been for turning on loads, multiple load controls, state of charge information, low voltage, reconnect voltages, everything like that. So fantastic way of pictorially seeing exactly what's taking place from your settings. The daily power records view is another really neat feature. It not only gives you graphs of what's taken place and event logs and counters that can be reset, but the daily records pick up all the information, date stamp it, time stamp it, and you can actually export this CSV file for review. It'll give you clear indications of daily faults or alarms, along with minimums and maximum values of all the different criteria here, which is quite a long list. The system event log, again, follows that same type of analogy here. You can export that information. And again, you can play the information from a clock standpoint and advance it to get to the days of interest, let's say, if you've had an issue. Again, really neat capabilities to do that. All the way off to the right, maybe a little bit hard to see, but you can see details of load status and charge states. If it went into a fault or if it's normal, anything like that. You can see exactly what might have occurred from a loading standpoint that would have maybe generated some kind of fault or error to the unit. That's another example of that. And this gets into the mobile app. So again, iOS and Android configured. It's auto configuring. So depending on what size device, whether you have a phone or an iPad or anything else, it'll auto size automatically for you and give you a pull down. And across the top, you'll be able to see basic information, array information, charging, and easy information on what the views are. So it's a great tool to be able to see through Bluetooth, for instance, what's taking place on your system. These are a few more examples of just being able to see basic system power flow, the ready block status of each three, if those are configured, external source control commands, how they're configured and what they're up to. And you can even do step through a firmware update using those apps. When we talk about firmware updates, all of the units will be shipped with the latest firmware, but it's really important to monitor that over time. If you do an update, think about the fact that the system will have to reboot once it gets the latest firmware, similar to your iPhone or something like that. So just be careful that and alert to the fact that that it will reboot and the system will keep charging. Won't disconnect batteries, won't disconnect the loads, anything like that, but you do need to just be aware of that. And so we have a little caution about that. This is a slide on our energy storage partner program. As I said, we developed this relationship with these manufacturers over the years. And what this really demonstrates is that we have really a technical handshake with each of these manufacturers with their batteries that says these are the ideal, these are the important settings and conditions that you should be charging our batteries on. So we have, through this ESP area on our website, a technical data sheet, integration guide rather, for each of these different manufacturers and how it applies to each one of our products. So whether it's a ProStar or TriStar or GenStar, these are all very valuable tools from a standpoint of getting the charging settings done right the first time. We even are continuing with the GenStar and with a closed loop integration process. We have Discover, Pylon Tech, WeCo now, and we're running down the list with the other manufacturers. So we will be able to use that ready BMS block in a closed loop configuration. Okay, if it's not closed loop and you don't use the BMS block, you're in really an open loop. But all that means is that the settings that we have recommended are what the charge controller is going to be charging with. And it's, again, it's a fantastic tool, technical handshake, and so important to get something done right. So I think with that, I'm going to say thank you. And again, my goal was to give you a high level overview of the GenStar and some of its capabilities. So if there are any questions, we can maybe take some questions. And Tatum, you might want to come off mute because I don't know if I see the actual chat. But
Hi, yes. Okay, so it looks like we do have one question here from Colin. Will LiveView 2.0 work with a TS MPPT 60?
great question. So 2.0 is really configured for the GenStar product line, but we have in process a tool like LiveView 2.0 that will be backwards compatible to our legacy products, including the TriStar. So obviously some of the feature sets that we have with LiveView 2.0 are specifically designed for the GenStar, but we understand the need and the interest of being able to look at things remotely. And with the TriStar and PPT having an internet port, it's ideally set up to be able to do that. So we are working on a roadmap on being able to deliver solutions to that.
Okay, wonderful. Does anyone else have any other questions? Oh, here we go. Any compatibility issues with AGM batteries?
Yeah, I actually see two. As far as stocking, GenStars, they should be readily available, including all the ready blocks and shunts. So you should feel comfortable with having access with that. So compatibility with AGM batteries, absolutely. Lead acid AGMs, those were the mainstay for many, many years. There's a complete compatibility with all those different battery chemistries. And for those of you who are familiar with the dip switches, as I mentioned earlier, there's also a dip switch type pull down menu for the different types of batteries that give you some default settings. But you can certainly go in, give it the information as far as the amp hour rating and tell it exactly what's going on and what those settings should be for that particular battery manufacturer, right? So we always recommend going to the battery manufacturer for the recommended settings, and absolutely. I mean, that's the powerful point of being able to handle any different type of battery chemistry. So thank you, Colin, for your question.
All right. Any other questions?
Well, with that, before I sign off, I would just like to say that from a tech support standpoint, if you have any questions, we've got some fantastic support individuals in our tech support group. They're based out of Maryland, so we're North America based, very, very responsive. We've got applications engineers that have actually worked out in the field for many years, designing, installing systems. So again, very, I think I would say aware of kind of the questions and concerns you might have when you're thinking about putting a system together. We can even, we often start with the string sizing calculator tool, but from a big picture perspective, monitoring, just understanding system sizing and the amount of batteries you need. I think about site design as kind of an art of moving levers of how much solar, how much battery, how much load, right? Those three things really come into play. So once you have a good perspective on that, we can easily give you some guidance and help you with any kind of tech support questions you might have with respect to the GenStar or any of our other products. So again, thank you, Tatum, and everything you guys do for supporting customers throughout Canada.
Thank you, John. Thanks so much for the very informative presentation. And yeah, as mentioned at the beginning, we will share this recording with you within 1 week of today's session. So thanks so much again, John, for joining. Take care.
My pleasure. Thanks so much, everyone.